Why was Remy admitted in the first place? And why are insiders claiming that her illness was not natural? One source believes she was taken to the hospital hurriedly following an enigmatic visit from an old acquaintance, while another alleges that security footage that was leaked recorded a violent argument in her hospital bed only hours before she passed away. And now Papoose is accusing others, demanding names, and not simply sobbing because what may have happened there may not have been an accident. And if the rumors are accurate, someone wanted Remy Ma to stay. It gets darker over time. The hospital was extremely silent, with fluorescent lights flickering over clean white floors and a foul odor in the air. Like bleach and bad news, it's somewhere in that quietness. A cry that was blatantly familiar, desperate, and desperate came through, "Do something, please." It was Papoose, the same Papoose who has kept Remy down for decades with hate, work, and jail time. Personal betrayals while crying on the hospital floor. The guy who never missed a beat when it came to protecting his queen begged the doctors to bring her back, but they were unable to do so because when they checked her pulse, there was no "let's go back in time" because, according to hospital insiders, Remy was brought in around 3:14 a.m. And the way we got here isn't just heartbreaking. It's suspicious, nasty, and one of the biggest bombshells hip-hop has ever seen. It wasn't a typical emergency call, but rather a direct request from a burner phone that was linked to a known acquaintance of Clarissa Shields. Yes, that's Clarissa the boxer, the woman who's claimed to have been training with Papoose during his fitness transformation period, as you recall. This is where things start to get strange though, because when Ruby got to the emergency room, she was confused and could hardly talk, and her blood pressure was extremely low. The staff became suspicious since there were no indications of damage or injury, just a quickly collapsing body with no apparent cause, and her pupils were dilated. One nurse, commenting anonymously, stated she did the biggest red flag was that her admission record was described as voluntary collapse. Pardon me, there is no official medical category called voluntary. But she also smelled like booze or drugs and appeared exhausted, as if her soul had been checked out. Collapse? That's a cover-up, not a diagnosis. But hospital footage shows Clarissa Shields entering through the rear exit minutes before the black-clad ambulance came, with no entourage present when security arrived. "I'm here for reminiscence," she said, flashing a handwritten visitor permit. "Yes, government name real personal," she said, staying for precisely 12 minutes before leaving without saying anything. Doctors temporarily stabilized Remy at the point where the timeline becomes erratic. She was semi-conscious and allegedly muttered, "Tell Pat I'm sorry, sorry for what?" just before she slid into when she became unconscious. Her heart monitor soared and then flatlined. Doctors hurried in, attempted CPR, gave her an epinephrine injection, used the defibrillator, and did nothing. Papoose then showed up, sprinting barefoot in sweatpants into the ICU hallway. Witnesses said that he pushed past three nurses while clutching a phone in one hand and a frayed notebook in the other, screaming, "Where is she?" She wasn't supposed to be alone. A security guard had to stop him since he was a doctor. Gave the worst news possible. We couldn't discover a heartbeat. At that point, the folder fell out of Papoose's fingers, containing what appeared to be printouts of messages between Remy and a person known as Spark Queen. Fans are now questioning whether this was more than a health scare or emotional sabotage due to Clarissa's camp's use of encrypted messaging platforms, as family sources claim Remy recently learned something. Something crushed her heart. According to a cousin, Remy overheard Papoose and Clarissa talking over the loudspeaker. He said she couldn't know yet, and Reedy was standing behind the door. And if that's the case, then everything that transpired after that wasn't a coincidence. Rather, it was the result of heartbreak. Additionally, a few days prior, a grainy image of Clarissa and Papoose entering a Detroit hotel appeared online. Both sides denied any inappropriate behavior, stating that they were merely exercising together. Clarissa shared a picture, but the caption didn't clarify why Papoose appeared or why she was dressed in a robe. After the defibrillator failed and Remy's vitals showed no signs of recovery, physicians labeled her medically unresponsive. Not brain dead, not formally gone, but somewhere in the middle. It was as if he had just lost a battle and had to return to the hospital. According to a call log that was leaked, Papoose called a private media contact from a well-known underground hip-hop site at that point. Not to a lawyer, not to relatives, and not to a journalist. The message: if anything happens to her, she publishes everything in the folder. According to reports, the folder contains a number of screenshots, audio notes, and text messages from the previous 6 months, including direct messages between Clarissa and Pap and notes that Remy wrote to in one terrifying note. Remy wrote, "I've survived worse, but betrayal less was going to take me out." She also canceled her studio appointment and failed to show up for the unexpected financial transfers from one joint account to an unidentified bank in Texas. Now, after hearing the flatline code, her brother hit a wall. Her mother apparently passed out in the waiting area, and one cousin was hauled out by security for ranting at in the meantime. Fans outside the hospital carried posters that said, "Remy, stay with us," lighted candles, and some lyrics. However, as the equipment beeped more slowly, the doctors within were losing hope. Slower, all Papoose could do was say, "Come back to me, please." After the light dimmed, the door closed, and everything outside Remy's hospital room became motionless. Time stood still. Papoose was standing there, his fists clenched, staring at the machines that had once echoed with the rhythm of Remy's life, but no one was talking. No nurses were moving, and doctors were frozen. 2 minutes after Remy's vitals stopped showing, an alert about an unauthorized access attempt on the hospital's private network appeared on the intensive care unit server. The hospital has yet to discuss what happened next. Tried to access Remy's medical information remotely, no clearance, no load, and simply brute force, and the location pings from Flint, Michigan, Clarissa's hometown. Coincidence. The hospital's its staff recognized it as suspicious, but instead of reporting it, they were directed to suppress the alarm, a direction that, according to one whistleblower, came from someone high up in hospital management. Why? Because Clarissa had donated $100,000 to the hospital's sports just 6 months ago. Remy's life was in a precarious situation when someone attempted to access or remove her data. The hospital remained silent, but Papoose wasn't finished and insisted that Remy be sent to a secure room in a different wing, but the physicians rejected it, stating that she was either too unstable or too inconvenient. Papoose called Malik at that point, making his second move. The man who once assisted Papoose in finding a stolen track list during the Lick Step era, Detective Malik, is a longtime family friend, part-time police officer, and full-time truth seeker. This time, however, it wasn't about a beat. Instead, it was about Remy. Within hours, Malik started looking through hospital logs, staff shifts, visitor ID data, and what he discovered was a 3-minute interval between 2:51 and 2:54 a.m., right before Ray's collapse, where Amber Lewis, the former stylist and best friend of Amber Remy, was given a visitor badge and was not logged out. Her initials were all that was displayed. Amber stopped showing up in pictures 2 months ago after it was reported that she had a prostitute. Apparently, Amber had been spotted in Midtown having lunch with Clarissa, and Papoose didn't like it, so why was Amber in the hospital? One staff member claimed to have seen Amber leaving Remy's room that evening. Phone in hand shaking, she informed the nurse she's going to freak when she wakes up. Unfortunately, Remy never did, and now fans were starting to link the dots. Social media exploded with comments, "Amber Clarissa, this is developing into a Lifetime movie. You guys should quit claiming that it's a coincidence. There isn't a thing like that in the Bronx. If Papoose releases the receipts, it's over for everyone." Because a few hours later, Papoose dropped a black and white picture on Instagram without a description or hashtags, just a grainy picture of a phone screen with a group chat labeled "Her Downfall," with users shouting CS and a blurred name that followers swore looked like online tabloid J. Lil Jackson Mills. The question was not if this was a setup, but rather how long it had been planned. Meanwhile, inside the hospital, Ray's condition hadn't changed, and the editor had a history for leaking dirt before the bodies cooled. Families alternately held her hand and spoke hope into her ear while the silent monitors flashed red. However, outside Papoose was constructing the case, and Malik verified that Amber had gone to the hospital 3 times that week without any medical issues. Requirement, he also revealed that Clarissa had transferred 4 payments of $7,000 each to an unregistered account titled Love Jail. What is that? Nobody knows, but fans speculated it could be code for Love Jail, the name of a ghost music that really apparently dropped a month ago. Why did she drop it? The words that were leaked hit too close to home. You claim to be training, but I see bruises. You claim to be loyal, but I see justifications. If I fail, don't lie at my wake. Admit it, you wrote me for clout's sake. Those remarks were eerily literal because the physicians drew Papoose aside while he was following leads and gave him the high-risk, low-success experimental electric stimulation as a last resort. With a shot at restoring neurological function, he didn't even blink. "Do it," he said. While they prepped the procedure, Papoose stood outside the door, eyes closed, hands shaking. He pulled out his phone and played an unreleased voicemail, Ronley's voice, gentle smiling. "If I ever wind up in a hospital, don't be dramatic, okay? Just play this, and remember I never stopped loving you." He played it 3 times, then came into the room, held her hand, and said, "Come back, don't let them win." They started the charge with a jolt, nothing, a second jolt that was still flat, and a third jolt that was accompanied by a tiny soft beep. The doctor gasped. The nurse grabbed the monitor, and Remy's fingers twitched. Sank to his knees and shouted, "She's in there." But as soon as the beep reverberated throughout the intensive care unit, everything stopped. The doctors and nurses paused, and Papoose gasped and glanced up, tears already running down his cheeks. Remy Ma was barely alive, but she had a heartbeat, and the doctors put her vitals on overdrive. Her brain activity was still low, and her vitals were still feeble, but the fact that her heart restarted itself was nothing short of a medical miracle. And outside of her by this point, the internet was not just speculating but also conducting investigations, and fans had assumed the role of digital detectives, posting timeline threads, data leaks, airline records, and one Reddit user even claimed to have gained access to Amber's burner Instagram account. And they discovered hilarious photos of hotel charges and private messages from CS Knockout, which read, "She was always willing to fold, I just helped." The real bombshell was an accompanying voice note in which a woman who sounded precisely like Clarissa claimed she wouldn't back down since he was picking me. It happened faster, and CS represents Clarissa Shields' knockout strike. Fans were in ruins, tweets went viral, and TikToks exploded with hypotheses ranging from Amber selling the tail for a payoff to Clarissa wanting her out of the way. However, none of anything was as bad as what transpired next. I'm not here to play. Papoose made a comeback to Instagram, but this time he posted a live video without a filter or any warning. He was seen standing outside Ray's hospital room holding a folder in one hand and his wedding ring in the other. Politics, you all want answers, and here they are. He started reading texts between Clarissa and an anonymous number, and the timing couldn't be more ideal. Following the next altercation, he announced that Amber had gotten a wire transfer receipt, $12,500 marked as consulting a confidential audio memo from Riley that was made weeks ago. If something were to happen to me, please know that I didn't give up. They just broke me. The comment section was lost, and I'm hearing that they attempted to remove her. Detective Malik, who had been working behind the scenes the entire time, ultimately broke the true bombshell when he tracked down the anonymous email that attempted to hack Ree's hospital. This is criminal, bigger than music. Filed and verified that it came from an IP address linked to a private fitness center in Flint, Michigan, where Clarissa Shields trains. By the next morning, Clarissa was trending on all platforms, not for a title victory, but for a championship. But due to a scandal so intense that publicists left her team, Clarissa has only been supportive. Any accusations to the contrary are untrue and slanderous. However, by that point, Amber's Jackson Mills, the dubious tabloid editor, was subpoenaed, and fans demanded that sponsors fire Clarissa, which two already did. Meanwhile, Rivy remained unconscious but stable, according to the doctors. Couldn't explain the return. The staff therapist referred to it as emotional resilience, Papoose termed it unfinished business. And it wasn't over yet, as Malik's investigation into the payments that Amber received $12,500, but it wasn't from Clarissa directly. Instead, it came from Apex Influence, a public relations agency that specializes in escalating celebrity prices. Apex's client list includes, you guessed it, Jackson Mills, which means that the media exposes the private film even if it turns out that Remy was working on an expose of her own memoir. But the enigmatic friend quotes from sources all planned a campaign to remove her from the public eye and substitute her story with one that suited others. She had already contributed chapters to one of them, Unwritten the Truth They Didn't Want Me to Say, which discussed emotional manipulation and betrayal from someone wearing gloves. One of the chapters was leaked anonymously to a small blog. Fans weren't merely observing. They were rallying for hashtag protect me, hashtag justice after someone threw punches both inside and outside the ring. It wasn't a metaphor, it was a direct hit. Hashtag Believe You Will Make thousands of people showered the hospital with messages, flowers, and handcrafted artwork. Billboards were erected around the Bronx, and Beat even hinted at a possible memorial segment. However, Remy wasn't finished yet. 3 days later, the hospital published a She Said, "Did he fight for me?" while still being feeble and under observation. When Papoose nodded, she muttered, "Then I'm not going anywhere. Thank you to everyone who doubted I'm still here." Remy said later that night when he wanted to record a message. It wasn't polished and wasn't approved by PR, but it was genuine to everyone who prayed. To the people who attempted to bury me, "You guys forgot that I'm from the Bronx and we don't die easy," she said, pausing as she gazed into the camera. Remy Ma then asserted her name, her narrative, and her truth. Clarissa silent Amber Alfred Jackson. In addition to resigning from his position at Exclusive Buzz Media, Mills publicly apologized. Papoose changed his bio with the words, "She woke up, now the world will." And they did so because this wasn't just a scandal, it was a survival. Remy Ma not only escaped a health scare, but also a takeover attempt that was disguised as one, and now she's returning for everything they attempted to steal. The issue now is, was this a warning and a declaration? Remy Ma flatlined due to a medical emergency or a planned takedown, and the medics gave up. But she returned somehow, not just with a heartbeat, but with a fury. Carissa's defenses went silent, Amber disappeared, Jackson Mills was exposed, and Papoose was never gave up fighting, not even for a moment. But the narrative isn't finished since, if Remy Ma's own statements are accurate, someone close to her attempted to separate her from them. This reaches far beyond the inside. Drama, treachery, this is deception. This is a warning to all if they could try it with fan viewing who you think Clarissa will be next. Was Amber only a pawn in this, or will Papoose be the player in this game? Ultimately make everything in that folder visible. Tell us in the future that he's still carrying remarks, since this time we're all a portion of the inquiry. Hit like, turn on that bell, and subscribe because the following drop contains more than simply tea. It's the whole darn truth is that this is gossip, a setting where the drama is constant, even when it's not real.